Hey everybody, so I think I fixed my problem. I think I got it, at least with the live connection. So hopefully we'll be good and it will not disconnect, but if it does and I freak out, don't trip. I'll figure it out eventually, okay? So this is going to be our second conversation. The first conversation I talked about last time, I basically was talking to you about what are we doing? What we are doing is I have a body fat contest going on right now. The body fat loss contest has 50 contestants. Each one of them have a body fat test that we did. The average was somewhere around 40% body fat or less than 40% body fat. We have men and women. We will be doing another test in a month, and then we will be doing a subsequent third test before Christmas. Now, this is very important because I'm all about data. Oftentimes, people will try to fool you and try to tell you, hey, this diet or this diet is the best. And to be honest with you, unless you track these things, all of those types of claims are really not very powerful, to be honest. So what we want to do is we want to use objective data, scientific analysis to verify how great whatever diet that you use works for your particular body. So what do I mean by that? So I've had a lot of clients in the past that say, hey, I need to have a low carb diet. And so they may do a low carb diet, and so they'll lose a lot of weight initially because that's what happens, right? When you take out carbohydrates from your diet, your body will tend to be dehydrated, right? Carbohydrate, right? That also works with the polarity of the water, so your body is not going to have a lot of water in it because you're not ingesting that. So your body will tend to lose weight, relatively quickly. Now, what happens is when you rehydrate, what happens? You gain that weight again. So that's something that we can objectively monitor. What does that mean? When we look at your body fat percentage, if you have, say, 100 pounds of lean body mass or fat-free mass, as some people call it, what that means is that when you lose fat, you want to lose just fat. You don't want to lose your muscle. If your deficit, if you eat too little calories, if you move too much, if this ratio is too great in terms of your deficit, you will burn your lean body mass. Your protein storage will be used as an energy storage. Now, why is that important? Well, it's bad first. It's inefficient. But over long term, that can lead to things like osteoporosis, osteopenia first. It can also lead to a lot of different hormonal or metabolic issues that don't necessarily have to happen if we preserve our lean body mass. So the first thing is when we're talking about what we are doing, we are objectively measuring our body fat so that whatever you particularly stick to, whoever is watching this, you're going to be able to monitor what's going on. Another example is I've had a few bodybuilding contests, bodybuilders monitor their body fat, but also monitor how much muscle that they're losing because often they have to lose just fat. And when you're talking about people who have 10, 12, 8 pounds of fat on their body, I mean, you really have to make sure that what you're doing is going to work towards their goals. Sometimes, there's going to be some health issues going on, but what I'm talking about is losing body fat because the nutrition talks that we are going to be having, it's not about being healthy. It's about losing body fat. And that's something that I often have to kind of clarify with my clients and the person I'm talking to because most people eat healthy, or at least if you're trying to lose fat, you tend to eat healthier, but sometimes you can have stubborn, issues and whatever you might find, but you don't lose the things that you want to lose. So the most important thing is let's track you and then let's input our food and let's figure out what's going on. Because honestly, as a scientist, what we can do is we can look at this data and say, look, if you do this and you move like this and we get this response, right? Is that what you want? No? So then let's change it. And that's the beauty. So we're going to look at a few different things today. And I think that's going to be it's going to be super powerful. So if you are following this, hopefully some of you input your food on MyFitnessPal. If you input your food on MyFitnessPal, it's going to look like this. So what you see here is you see food, breakfast, lunch, and I can scroll and have dinner. And then you will see categories like how many calories, carbs, fat, protein, sugar. Okay, this is very important because at the very bottom, okay, of this page, you are going to have your goals. So your goals are going to help you track. Whoops, sorry. Everything that we're doing. So if you can see this right here, my daily intake needs to be around 2,300 calories. My carbs, somewhere around 300. Fat, 79. Protein, sodium, and sugar. Now, let's talk about this. So, I want to clarify something really quick. And I think this is very important because I've worked with a tremendous amount of health professionals. If you have a substantial eating disorder and inputting your food, right, tracking your food triggers you, stop immediately and contact anybody that you need to, right? Your former, help, your support system, because this is not about triggering anybody. This is not about making somebody feel bad. But if I can just take a quick minute, 5 of the top 10 leading causes for death in America are actually created by nutrition and lifestyle related diseases. So things like kidney disease, diabetes, cancer, heart issues. These are things that, I'm not trying to say you're going to cure every single thing, but making a substantial lifestyle change, losing a little bit of body fat, getting your body back into the great shape that it needs to be in is a fantastic way to get further away from those things. And those of you that have family members and those of you that have people that are going through things like that, you know how important it is that when those things present themselves, you want to be as far away from them as you can. And you wish you did something a little bit more proactive before you got to that point. So if I can continue, what I just showed you is when you input your food, the computer gives you how many calories you need to eat, how many carbs, protein, and fats that you need to eat. Now, I want to talk about that for a moment because the other day I had a gentleman, hopefully he's watching, I can't see right now, but he said, hey, I'm a Persian guy, I have ethnic food, how do I find these particular things? Now, and I'm not talking about, that's just a question that he asked me. And he's not a lazy person by any chance, any means. But what I want you guys to do is get out there. Put some effort out there. I'm not saying he's lazy and I'm not saying anybody else is lazy, but sometimes we want someone to just tell us how it is. But dude, if you use MyFitnessPal, it is fantastic because so what we did is we input all the different Persian food he was talking about and boom, it was right there. There's a barcode and I can't show you because I'm on my phone right now, but there's a barcode that you can use to scan your food. So if you have a box of food that has a little barcode on it, you can scan it with your phone and you can input the calories that way. It's super fast. So once we start looking at what our calories are, what our protein, carbs, and all that kind of stuff is, you get all these numbers. And so we say, where do we start? Okay. Well, and I'm going to show you this right now. We have this cool thing that I'm going to be showing everyone. It's a big triangle, okay? I know you can't read it because of the top, but when you look at a triangle, do you start up here? No. You're going to start down here. And the number one place that we are going to start when we're talking about what are we looking at is this right here. Energy balance. Okay? We're talking about behavior and lifestyle changes. Do we start with supplements? Of course not. Do we start with when do we eat? Well, you could, But let's start with this concept of energy balance. So what does that mean? We eat food. We burn it. When I'm talking, I'm burning some calories. It's late. It's 9:30. I'm burning some calories. So when you eat food, you're going to eat a particular amount of calories. You saw 2,300 is my calories. That's a lot. I'm not really a big dude, but I'm like 5'9", 210 pounds. So there's a substantial amount of food that I need, which is 2,300 calories in order to maintain that. Okay. Now, if I eat that, I won't gain weight. If I eat more, like 25, 26, 2,700, I will gain weight. I'm trying to lose a little bit, so I'll eat like 2,000, maybe 2,100, okay? Now, some days I don't eat a lot because I'm busy, so I might eat 18. Now, that's bad because other days I may eat more. So one of the things we have to do is we have to look at our calorie intake. So rather than trying to tell you, like when you use MyFitnessPal, rather than trying to say, hey, eat 2,000 or eat 1,500, just input your food. And I said this last week, just input your food. If you're normally eating 1,000 calories, then like that's a red alert. We need to eat more calories. Okay. So that's the first thing is you have to just know where you're at. Okay. Then once you look at your calorie, your energy balance, you have to say, look, am I at a deficit? Meaning if I eat this much, am I moving more? Am I moving less? If I stay the same weight, I'm moving the same. If I move more, I'm going to lose weight. If I move less, I'm going to gain weight, right? Because if I eat more, I'm going to gain weight. Okay. So this is an important energy balance concept that most of us know. So just forgive me for a second. I have to make sure we're all there to make sure that we move forward. So another thing that a lot of times we talk about is like if we were talking about water. Okay. Somebody might say, oh, well, what about electrolytes? Well, let's talk about big molecules first. Then we'll talk about smaller molecules. So when we talk about big molecules, we're going to talk about what we call macronutrients. So if I'm asking you how to prioritize your food, first we talk about, are you in a deficit? If you're trying to lose fat, you want to be in a deficit. You don't want to have okay, hold on. If this is what you eat, and this is what you move, you don't want to have too big of a deficit because then you'll burn lean body mass, okay? If you have an adequate deficit, you'll just burn fat. You have to monitor that in order to know it. You know, it's not just something people are going to be, oh, I'm burning just fat, baby. I'm learning. I can tell because I'm looking at my sexy body. Like that makes no sense. And that is totally ridiculous. Okay. So we monitor these things so that we have objective data so we know what's going on. I mean, you can even like measure your bicep. Okay. Anyways. So once we get that energy balance and we know we're in a deficit, right? Because we know we're trying to move more than we eat. Okay. Then we know we are losing body fat. The next thing is we have to supplement that fat loss because that's only the first level. The next thing is, and I always talk about carbohydrates and protein ratio. Okay. So most of the research shows that if you have this many carbs, you have to have a certain amount of protein to regulate your blood sugar. Okay. If you're a big person, you need more carbs. And you may need more protein. But you can't have this huge ratio where you have just a little bit of protein and a lot of carbs, okay? That happens with vegetarians, with vegans, right? Because they don't eat these animal products or they don't eat protein-based products. So then they have a lot of carbs and a lot of fat, but then they got just a little bit of protein. And so they develop blood sugar issues, metabolic syndrome issues, and there's a lot of research that backs that up. So what we need to do is first we're at a deficit, and then we monitor our carbohydrates. So I want to show you that real quick, okay? Because there's another picture that you need to look at, okay? Now, when we look at your carbohydrate intake, you're going to see here that it says, okay, he needs 296. Don't be jealous. And he had 216. Great. What does that mean? I don't even know. Now of course I know, I'm the coach, right? But so what that means is that I had a lot of carbs. I wasn't on a low carb diet. but I can lose weight with those amount of carbs. A lot of people can't. Okay. Now, this is a better accurate view of what that means. So you see that ratio? So it says my goal is 50% of my diet needs to be carbs, and I had 48%. So that's a little bit easier to look at, right? You can look at that graph and say, hey, this is easier to grasp. It makes more sense. What I want to do is I want to make sure that I hit my numbers for my macronutrients, okay? So if you check it out, you got these 3 tabs: calories, nutrients, and macros, okay? So first we go to calories. They don't know any better, so then they put nutrients. But macros should actually be there, and the nutrients should be on the other side if we're talking about like a synchronization in order, right? Because we want to work big molecules to small molecules, right? So if your carbohydrate and protein ratio is off, who cares how much sodium you have? Seriously, right? Yes, that's a good thing if you have high blood pressure or something, but it's really important to be like, look, let's prioritize this, dude. You can have great sodium and not lose any fat. So let's make sure that we're efficient. Big molecules first. That's an important concept. So once we move from those macronutrients, then we move into what would you call micronutrients, right? These micronutrients are going to be really important. So I don't want to bore anybody, but if I can just show you real quick this thing. There is the same chart. Okay. So you have energy balance, macronutrients, and then micronutrients. Your micronutrients are your vitamins and minerals. This week, I will be sending you what are called the DRIs, okay? I want to give you some opportunity to look at it. What it does is it tells you how much iron, zinc, magnesium, the minerals, vitamins, all the different things that you may be, phosphorus, that you may be interested in knowing what you should have. And it just tells you, have this much, this is the tolerable level, this is the upper limits. These are things that you can work on. Now, is that important for everybody? Like, of course not. If you're interested in your geeky and your sciencey, of course you can learn that stuff. But the most important concept for these micronutrients are the sodium, potassium connection. So sodium and potassium are opposing molecules that when we talk about cells, you're going to have sodium on the inside of a cell and potassium on the outside, or vice versa. When we have a lot of sodium, a lot of times what we tell ourselves is, oh, we get bloated, right? Because the water molecule has a polarity, a magnetism to that sodium. So there's a lot of water and sodium into that cell. What's interesting is that there is this reverse mechanism between sodium and potassium that if you have more potassium outside the cell, which you have to eat, right? So things like grapes, potatoes, particular types of foods that have a lot of potassium can actually help push all of that sodium outside of your body, outside of those cells. So if we have things like too high of sodium days, I'm not telling you to eat like a bazillion milligrams of potassium, but you want to have adequate levels of potassium. So one thing that happens when people hold weight or hold water weight, we look at their calories, then we look at their macronutrients, then we look at their micronutrients, and I'm like, hey, where's your sodium? And then I tell myself, where is their potassium? Because that could be severely affecting the way that your molecules are interchanging. And so that's an efficiency thing. And that's really important in terms of losing body fat. Okay. The way we lose fat is by being more efficient, because if we have fat, that means we inefficiently stored it. Our body doesn't want to store fat. We do everything we can to burn stuff. And if you hold it, that means your body didn't want to hold it, right? I mean, you get my concept, right? But what happens is we have to make sure that we do these changes and we realign the efficiency to get the most out of our body. Okay. So for right now, that's it. Let's look at your food. You want to make sure that you input your food. You're at a deficit. You want to make sure that you look at your carbohydrates and protein. I need you to make sure you go calories, carbs, protein, and then we go macronutrients. Look at your sodium, look at your potassium. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? While I'm here, I'm just going to chill for like 3 minutes. Might just go to sleep. But if anyone has any questions, I was just talking. Right? Nobody? Is everybody using it? Okay. Okay, we got a couple new people. But guess what? I just finished. So you guys are going to have to go back and look. Straight up. All right. So, hey, thank you once again. Let me just show you what I went over. We talked about the nutrition pyramid, okay? Energy balance, macronutrients, micronutrients. That's what we need to look at, okay? The next thing that we looked at is we talked about inputting your food, okay? When you input your food, it's going to tell you exactly how many you need to eat. Now, this is where you're going to get a lot of benefit too. If I can just do this for one more second, you can pull up this data, okay? Like this. You go to reports. You can pick a certain amount of days, okay? So you can say last 30 days. And then we're going to go to what we call, and you'll see this. Sorry, it's a little shaky, you guys. Net calories. Okay? So if you look at this, for these particular 3 days, if this is what your goal is right here, okay, you want to make sure that you're under it, okay, or around that goal. Now, if you have a lot of these spikes up and down, that's going to make it a little bit more difficult, okay? So if you can just be consistent with all these bars, this is only 3 days. I should have put in more food, and I'll do that for next time. But let's make sure that when we input our food, we see this consistent graph all the way across. Again, consistency and efficiency are going to be super powerful. So good luck. Please make sure that you put a lot of effort and time into this because it's worth it. And you guys are worth it. And let me just tell you, when I graduated from college, I was 260 pounds and I was very heavy. I have every excuse in the world because I had, my wife and I, Amber, we had our second child, and I was working, everything, right? But I was really heavy and I was a trainer. I got down to 200. Right now I'm 210 because that's a nice weight for me. And I had a lot of nights. I had to just input my food. I had to really learn a lot about myself. And I think that if you spend some time doing that, you're not only going to find out that you have a tremendous amount of willpower, but that knowledge is power, man. And it's not just about having knowledge, but wisdom is applied knowledge, right? You can't just have, applicable knowledge. Wisdom is using what you learn to efficiently make your life better. And that's what we're trying to do here, okay? So check out my YouTube page, okay? And hopefully give me a couple likes. Enjoy and have a great day, you guys. All right? Be well.